turn it over to staff for them to provide us with a brief presentation, and we can get to closed session.
Good afternoon. I am here to present this item. BART intends to award 8 professional service agreements, numbers 6M8207, thank you, through 6M8214 at $40 million each, a total of $320 million, for on-call architectural and general engineering services. These firms play a key role in design and engineering projects within the district's capital program, which includes our Measure RR funded projects, as well as the Core Capacity Program. These firms support BART by providing services that include reports, conceptual design, design review, preliminary engineering services, inspectors, design support during construction, among others. In the past 10 years, the district has awarded several on-call architectural and general engineering service agreements, included in 2017 to 6 firms for $25 million each, which expired in August 2022, and in 2019 to 8 firms for $40 million each, set to expire in March 2024. Having reached the limits of committed authority, for several of these agreements, new agreements are required to ensure the district can continue its capital work to meet its essential facilities and systems engineering needs. On October 10th, 2022, the district issued an RFP to engage up to 8 consulting firms at $40 million each. BART received 11 proposals on November 22nd, 2022, and they were evaluated by a selection panel of 7. The 10 proposers deemed responsive were interviewed January 17th through the 19th, 2023. Staff recommends the following 8 firms be awarded on-call agreements for up to $40 million for a 5-year performance period. These firms are Gannett Fleming, located in Oakland, California, HDR Engineering and Walnut Creek, HNTB Corporation, FMG Plus Company, a joint venture in Oakland, Jacobs Engineering Group in Oakland, Parsons Transportation Group in Oakland, PGH Wong Engineering in San Francisco, TY Lin International and Transit Systems Engineering, a joint venture in Oakland, California, and WSP USA in San Francisco. After reviewing scope, the Office of Civil Rights determined a 30% small business enterprise participation goal to meet both the district's and the federal government's commitment to foster small business participation. The district could reject all proposals and resolicit new proposals. However, reissuing the RFPs would adversely impact the implementation of BART's capital improvement program and would not likely result in better quality bids. Therefore, the district recommends that BART adopts the motion. The board adopts the motion.
Thank you, Nikila. Madam Secretary, do we have any in-person public comment?
I did not receive any speaker cards for in-person comment.
And do we have any Zoom public comment?
We have 2 hands raised on Zoom.
Thank you.
Going first to Chuck, please go ahead.
Yes, hi. Good morning. I'm Chuck Morganson. I'm the program manager for the HNTB FMG joint venture. And I just want to thank BART staff and the board for selecting us for this contract. I'm serving as a prime consultant to BART. It's an honor and it's a responsibility that we take very seriously as professional engineers and architects. We look forward to continuing to support the delivery of your major programs for the state of good repair for the BART system, such as the K-line interlocking program, the East Bay substation, traction power replacements, station access improvements, and mitigation of your tunnel water intrusion. These projects are planned to be constructed with a minimum of impacts to revenue service, and they're part of your vision for increasing service reliability and the passenger experience to grow ridership. And finally, we continue on our commitment to small business with our joint venture partner to share a significant amount of this portion with small local businesses, both SBEs and DBEs. And we've consistently done that through our past contracts. And then I just want to add that, personally, my heart really goes out to those residents that we've just been hearing from. I did see on an NBC Bay Area news story that there is a donation site set up through Mealtrain. So I'm certainly looking into that right now. I'm going to share that with our team and see what else we can do to support the whole BART community in this effort. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chuck. We appreciate those comments. Madam Secretary?
Sharissa, please go ahead. Please accept the unmute request. There, please go ahead.
Okay, great. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Teresa Frank. I'm President and CEO of FMG and Company and joint venture partner with HNTB for this contract. First, I'd like to commend BART for moving this selection process through quickly. We appreciate the responsiveness and open communications of staff leading up to this day. This is the third time FMG and HNTB have pursued this contract as a joint venture prime. I'd like to take a minute to highlight the significance of a collaboration like this. It is truly a testament to BART's commitment to community and building the workforce with women minority-owned small businesses. Today, as a result of this collaboration, we as a small business have a seat at the table and a voice while delivering projects for BART. We've been able to take this alliance and expand it to our small business teaming partners, and in turn provide them opportunities to lead work and deliver projects for BART. Over the last two contracts, we've experienced BART staff at all levels show their commitment to project delivery while supporting small businesses in leading work. This is a proof of a culture of collaboration and working together as a team. Again, thank you for your continued support of small business and community. And thank you, Chuck, for looking up a way that we can help the residents at Coliseum.
Thank you, Teresa.
I don't see any additional hands raised, Chair Foley.
All right. Seeing no additional public comment, let's turn to director's comments. I have Director Allen followed by Director Rayburn.
Thank you, Chair Foley. Did anyone move this item?
Not as of yet.
I move.
I'll second it.
Properly moved and seconded.
Oh, okay. So I want to just step back. Thank you, staff, for the presentation and the history that you gave. I want to step back to February 2019. This board granted $40 million in contract commitment authority to the GM and staff to each of 8 teams, many of which who are before us here again today. I went back and watched the video of February 2019 because I remembered some interesting discussion from back then. And here's what I found before the 8-1 approval of those contracts back then. There was 2 significant issues. One was the insurance, the professional liability insurance program of BART, and with respect to SBE consultants, I believe I said is the tail wagging the dog here. In discussion about how much that program cost with respect to duplicative professional liability insurance. And then the second main issue there of discussion was that when we awarded these same agreements 4 years ago, both Director Ames and I raised the issue of the lack of transparency and accountability in this process. I requested and I was granted amendments to the motion to include 2 things. One, the details of the July of 2017 $150 million of contracts, that the details of how that money was spent be forwarded to us. And then second was to amend the motion to require semi-annual presentations. I said quarterly, and I settled on semi-annual presentations of the spending of these contracts to the board. And I've asked about this a few times along the way behind the scenes, and have been met with, yeah, we'll look into that. So I'm going to stop and ask 3 questions of staff. First, did we address the professional liability insurance program issues that we talked about in 2019? Do we have professional broad blanket liability for these sub-consultants, and is that a BART paid for program?
So, Director Allen, apologize. I'm not familiar with the 4-year ago discussion. I'd have to go back and look at that.
Okay.
I know that we have worked with all of our consultants, both subs and primes, to make sure that it's equitable and that they have the ability to get the insurance that they need.
Yeah, I think the issue was that, we are providing a program for the sub-consultants, And the result of that is BART is paying for that coverage for them as a part of this contracting process. And when a claim arises that is, against one of those sub-consultants, then BART has to actually make a claim against its own insurance, and that actually raises the cost of insurance. It's sort of a circular situation. That was what we discussed back then. So I would like to have an answer, when you get time to look into this, as to what is our program now. I believe it was called PLIP. The second question is, did we pay out all 8? Did we exhaust all 8 contracts from 2019 at $40 million each, or is there some values left on those?
Director Allen, there's a range of remaining authorities on all 8, but 6 of the 8 are mostly committed or almost committed. So 6 of 8.
Okay, and then finally, am I wrong that we have not had presentation of over the last 4 years of how these contracts were exhausted? Did I miss something?
I don't know if we've given you a global presentation on how they're exhausted, but we've given you updates from Measure RR for bond oversight, from several different programs and projects that the essential purpose of the GECs are for. Sure. So you've approved them along the way, or you've been apprised of them along the way.
Yeah, we've approved work along the way, but this motion included a provision, and it was what compelled me to vote yes. Otherwise, I would have been a no. And the amended motion required semi-annual presentations of the on-call contracts, the specifics of how that money was being spent, which projects, and statuses of those projects. I think you've answered, and I'm trying to go fast to get through this. So here we are today, 4 years later, and as a board, we're asked to approve the following motion. The general manager is authorized to award the below listed agreements to provide architectural and general engineering services to an amount not to exceed $40 million each, $320 million in total, pursuant to notification to be issued by the general manager. That's the first paragraph of the motion. Our EDD contains this statement: upon authorization to award, staff will begin negotiations with these 8 firms. BART Contract Administration, with support from internal audit and professional service agreements, will evaluate and discuss the proposed rates and markups for a cost plus fixed fee rate agreement. It's a cost plus fixed fee rate agreement. These are 5-year contracts that are being negotiated by staff. We've been given no details as to really the project scopes, which firms are doing which scopes of what kinds of work. We know about global programs of Measure RR on a very high level, but we've not been given the details of these contracts. The only thing we know is that each firm gets $40 million in billings at the discretion of our staff. This is not responsible, in my opinion. This is irresponsible of this board to grant this kind of unchecked latitude to our general manager and staff without accountability to this board for the spending. It's the same thing I said 4 years ago. The Inspector General oversight was also a topic of conversation at that 2019 meeting. And she was new at the time, but it was mentioned by Director McPartlin as what he would be relying on for oversight of these contracts. The IG now has reported 3 times on conflicts of interest in contracts similar to what's before us, and her work on this topic is ongoing. In my opinion, we have failed to adequately fund her office to a level of being capable of auditing these large contracts to an acceptable level. But already 4 of these prime contracts were the subject of recent IG audits with findings. They were recently, just a week ago, A&E Contractors ran a $1.6 million subcontract through their prime contract at the request of staff for pandemic-related financial analysis unrelated to infrastructure contract scope. No one in staff could remember who ordered that. It's in the report, by the way. I'm not making this up. There are 3 conflict of interest cases with findings including 2 former employees who were a part of the making on contracts while employed at BART, only to leave and go to work for other firms or their own firms as sub-consultants to these prime on-call contractors. Another conflict of interest from last year that involved one of the firms that's before us today. And another report about DBEs being added to as sub-consultants. I won't go into the details about that. Now, I know someone's going to mention here that we have a Measure RR Oversight Committee, and they do fantastic work and everything will be fine. They do fantastic work, but everything will not be fine just because of that work. The Oversight Committee is a group of community volunteers that meets 4 times per year. They look at high-level information about projects presented to them by staff, similar to what we receive, and have no audit authority. I confirmed with the committee chair that they have never asked for or reviewed detailed info about these on-call contracts. So I've mentioned before, in fact, in 2017 and 19, that I did not favor this large authorization of really unchecked spending with hundreds of millions of dollars and no transparency to either the public or this board. And in 2019, I reluctantly approved these contracts with the promise of some reporting oversight, more detail that we would get about them. We didn't get that information, and so I have no reason to believe we're going to get that information going forward. I think we're out of control here with respect to oversight, and it is time to rein things in. I can't support giving a blank check to staff for $320 million on undefined scopes, knowing what we've learned just recently from IG audits. In watching the video from 2019, and this is my last comment, I really had to chuckle at some of our own board comments that we said back then about this topic of oversight. Director McPartland had faith that our IG would be all over this with a fine-tooth comb, but the reality is her small staff has really only afforded a handful of audits on very narrow topics. And Director Simon commented that we had put the nepotism of the past behind us. And we know that there is still some ongoing questions about that. Based on that, I'm going to propose a substitute motion. Staff's proposed motion should be amended to have the dollar amount changed to $5 million. Now, by the way, there was some discussion between some of us about just saying we're not going to approve these. And we need to table this and go back and figure out how we're going to get accountability on these contracts. But I'm willing to do it this way. Change the motion to $5 million per contract and not $40 million. And additionally, insert the following into the end of the motion, quote, each contract shall undergo an audit by the Office of the Inspector General at 50% completion mark to ensure compliance with all contract provisions and state and federal laws. So that's my motion. I'm hoping that someone will second that.
I'll second that.
Been moved and seconded. All right, I have Director Rayburn, followed by Ames, followed by Saltzman.
Thank you, Chair Foley. And I appreciate the comments made to the board by Chuck Mortensen and Teresa Frank. As well, we received comments from many of the firms that applied. We made an agreement with the public in 2016 when the voters approved Measure RR. And that was that we would emphasize that our capital spending to rebuild BART would offer opportunities to the community. And I was a little disappointed when I didn't see in the EDD the full listing of who's going to be getting all the subcontracts. And so I asked Shane the other day if I could get that full list. I now have that list, and it includes that amongst the awardees are 118 unique subconsultants. That's a tremendous number of firms that will be beneficiaries of BART's contracting. Of that 118, 71 are DBE or SBE consultants. That's disadvantaged business enterprises or small business enterprises. And of that 71, 53 are unique to working inside the BART market area. That means local firms are going to benefit with the dollars that we're collecting locally from the public. That to me is a successful program. I also asked that Maceo come up and address the issue of the insurance for those subs. And I know that we've talked about this and addressed it in numerous business advisory council meetings. I believe that we've addressed the issue back in 2019 and that it was put in place and is continuing on now. Do you want to just share with us the results of that work?
Good morning, directors. Yes, the topic I believe is called on the PLIP, the Professional Liability Insurance Program, which is essentially a non-construction related owner insurance program, an OSIP. The discussions we had were with the Deputy General Manager, Mr. Carl Holmes, at AGM when he was here, and the insurance group, which handles the decision-making around how we proceed with our insurance, is waiting for an opportunity for the market to become more favorable for a PLIP was the last discussion we had about that, but the commitment to implement the PLIP, to my knowledge, remains in place.
Thank you very much. And I'm going to be supporting the original motion. Thank you.
Thank you. I have Director Ames, followed by Saltzman, McPartlin, Dufty, and Allen.
Okay, I am going to support the substitute motion. I'm really conflicted about this proposal. I know we've talked to staff about this, and I know you're working on providing more accountability, more transparency. I am disappointed that we didn't get a list of the projects with potential, order of magnitude budgets that substantiated the 40 million per contract. So we've got $320 million worth of work, which I know we have a sense of what that is. And I was hoping to see a list today. And after Director Allen's recount of the past, it really harkens to me that we must provide this kind of information, especially during now spending $320 million. And then we've got the budget uncertainties of the future. And I'm just concerned that we're not giving the public or the directors enough information to track progress. And maybe even decide, maybe we relook at what services we are contracting out, and we potentially rethink those priorities. Basically, there's no decision-making happening at the board level. It's all happening by staff, and that's really the crux of why I didn't support the previous on-call contracts. Not only that, but it's just the lack of transparency we talked about. So I'm hopeful that the BART board sees the need for this accountability and transparency, and that we see a new budget document that provides projects, budgets, scopes of work. And Sylvia, I know you're trying to work on these updates, and apparently we were supposed to get these updates starting in when we approved those contracts. What was that, in 2019? So a lot of time has passed. I'm concerned that we don't have this information today, and I'm looking forward to a budget document that has this information we're looking for. But for now, I'm going to support the substitute motion because I think it's valuable to get these updates sooner than later. Thank you.
Thank you. Before I go to Director Saltzman, I'd like to ask General Counsel, is the motion properly in order with the request from the Inspector General?
I'm not sure if I understand your question, but yes, the motion, the substitute motion that Director Allen made that also requires that the contracts be audited at 50% of their capacity is not improper.
Okay, so we can direct that to the Inspector General as
Yes.
part of the motion. Okay, thank you. All right, so let me turn it to Director Saltzman, McPartland, Dufty, and then Allen.
Thank you. I have a couple questions about the substitute motion. I know it's hard to estimate, but do you have a rough estimate if we passed the substitute motion, how quickly would we run through the 5 million?
Director Salzman, Sylvia Lamb, Assistant General Manager of Infrastructure Delivery. We would run through it fairly quickly, and I couldn't give you the exact dates, but the real kind of problem with that is also juggling the projects and who's doing what work. So there are some projects that without this authority will need to go on pause. And just kind of just giving you a little bit more idea, we have for RR alone over 30 projects in design right now, and 50 of them are in construction. And a lot of these GECs will go to supporting that. So it's not necessarily the 5 million, it's the who's doing what and how would you juggle those priorities.
And so some of it, I think part of what I hear what you're saying is, you know, one firm will be working on one project, one another. So one firm might be doing work this year, one might not. It might do work next year, but to like split it up between them would be a whole nother mess.
In the middle of the design.
In the middle of a design.
Yeah. And then another question about how much staff time and how much money does it take to continue to issue a bunch of RFPs? Because if we were going to forward with 5 million and we were just going to do 5 million again and again, we'd be doing these multiple times a year. So how much does that cost?
Allard, do you have that?
Yeah, Allard can augment, but you know, I heard a number yesterday that you know the average RFP takes our staff about 5 months when you coordinate with the general counsel and you coordinate with OCR and Allard staff. So it's a pretty large endeavor, Director Saltzman.
So I think given that we're still, you know, somewhat short-staffed and the difficulty of hiring right now, given our financial situation and given the importance of the RR projects, which is one of the things we actually have funding for, and it's a huge success story, we're ahead of where we should be. I can't support the substitute motion. I still, you know, agree that it would be good to get more updates, and whether it's a presentation of the board or a memo, I think more information is better. So, you know, we don't have these questions every time these things come before us. So you're all new in your positions. So I think we can have a fresh start here, but I would like some commitment that we will get, you know, at minimum, the semi-annual reports on what is happening with these contracts.
Just really quickly, I'll let Sylvia jump in because she's probably got a commitment that she wants to make. But Pam, I was remiss to, and Pam reminded me that we have done a better job in transparency. As a result of one of the IG's investigations specifically, we have all of the on-calls online in a place where you can find them, not buried in 5 or 6 different clicks. And we also have all of the work plans that are out there now. So we're edging ever so closely, and then Sylvia.
Yes, I'm very committed to increasing the transparency. The capital project report that was given previously to the board, that's in update right now through December, and that will be coming to the board. And with these discussions and these concerns and other conversations I've had, we'll add a section in there on how the GECs are being applied to each of those projects and what they're forecasted at to keep that transparency going.
And maybe if you could just periodically, when things are updated, let us know, because we're not going to just be constantly reloading the various parts of BART's website, so we don't always know that there's an update. So just if you can put that in your plan to update us when there's significant updates. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Director McPartland.
Thank you. Question. How many projects did you have going? You said 32 right now?
Those are in design for RR. We have 270 active projects.
270.
Right now.
I'd like to put in a substitute to the substitute and just change that figure from 5 million to 10 million. And I support the motion with the exception of that change that has been the original substitute motion simply because of the transparency. We've got over the next 4 years, we're going to end up having over $300 million fly under the radar. If somebody wants to look it up, they can look it up online. I think that we as a board are responsible for all of this stuff that's going on, and I don't see how, or please explain to me, is there any way that this would be disruptive of reporting out on that semi-annually?
Not reporting out, no, absolutely not.
Okay.
That's a total commitment that I have.
So then we got the accountant, so everything continues to go as it is, and you're just reporting out semi-annually on what the progress is with all of these different projects and different companies and the things that they're working on. And it's like, if I can end up using the patient management process, if I end up having to check the pulse and respirations and blood pressure every half hour, is simply just reporting out. And that gives us both accountability, it gives us the transparency, and the public has an opportunity to take a look at it. I don't see where that would be a problem. So my substitute motion is going to end up being changing that dollar amount from 5 million to 10 million.
General Counsel, can I ask, do we have an unlimited number of substitute motions? What is?
3 motions on the table at a time is the limit.
All right, so this would be the third if seconded.
So,
Is there a
so
second?
Chair,
Is there a second?
I'll second it. Chair Foley, I would like to maybe make this a little simpler, because if the 10 million doesn't pass this board, then certainly the 5 million is not going to. So I am happy to, at the request of Director McPartlin, amend my motion to make it 10 million and not 5 million.
Okay, then I will, if she's amended hers, then I will withdraw mine.
All right,
Thank you.
friendly amendment has been accepted. All right, Director Dufty.
Thank you. General Counsel, could you just read the original amendment? I'd just like to hear it again.
Yes, except I need to read my writing, but it is. Director Allen's substitute motion is now that instead of 40 million, it is $10 million per agreement, and that each contract shall be audited by the Inspector General at 50% of its completion amount for compliance with, and this is where I had some chicken scratch, with federal and state laws.
Well, I said all contract provisions and federal and state laws. Yeah.
Okay. Can you read it one more time now that you have the
Yes,
remainder?
instead of the original motion, instead of $40 million, it is $10 million per agreement, and each contract shall be audited by the Inspector General at 50% of completion for compliance with all contract provisions and federal and state laws.
Okay, thank you. I will say one of my most memorable times at a BART board meeting, and goodness knows we spend a lot of time at these meetings, was when maybe a year and a half ago, Sylvia did a presentation on project management. And I do kind of come back to it because my spirits were lifted. She was so excited about project management and the way she talked about it and the thoughtfulness. And it struck and has stayed with me. So I regret that the prior assistant general manager and the operation did not follow through on the commitment in terms of transparency and offering semi-annual updates on our GECs. But I am confident that Ms. Lamb is going to do this, and I would like to suggest that for the operation of this agency that, and as it relates to the Inspector General, I do want to put it on the record. I have been in frequent discussion with our general manager about where we can go and get some resources for the Inspector General, and there's some leadership decisions that can be made in the next few months as it relates to BATA and MTC. And so I definitely think that that is a good direction. And I think that the Inspector General should have more resources. So I just simply want to say that my vote today is not going to be for this amendment, but it's out of respect that I do believe that Ms. Lamb is going to be judicious in talking to each and every one of us, understanding what are the specific concerns and priorities that we have to make sure that this process is accountable. So with that, I will be voting for the original motion.
Thank you. Director Allen and Ames, I see that you're both requesting to speak a second time. If I could ask that there be new information and you be as brief as possible so we can get to the amended motion vote. Thank you.
Yes, just a couple of clarifications. First, to be clear, I want the infrastructure work to move forward as quickly as possible too. But oversight and accountability, to me, trumps moving it forward quickly. And I think it does for the taxpayers as well, and riders and even workers who want accountability too. We have to bring focus to that. So two, the capital project reports, and it was a great presentation, Director Dufty, you are correct. And I know, Sylvia, you are working as hard as you can on this reporting feature, but that last presentation provided us with no data. It provided us with a process and some examples, and it was a great step forward. It did not provide us with the kind of reporting data that I am looking for. I have been looking for over 6 years now, and the accountability that I was looking for in 2019 when I approved these contracts. The contracts with a $10 million limit, I would expect that some of the bigger contracts that would run out quickly of the 10 million would come back to us outside of this blanket overall program and with a board agenda item of we need more money for this particular prime consultant, and that we would approve that based on accountability and going forward. That's not a hard thing to ask, to have us not approve 8 contracts all at once with no details. So those bigger design firms can come back to us. And then I had one quick question for Maceo, because I don't think it was clear. Did he leave? He's here. I'm not sure if it was clear if we actually implemented the PLIP. Is that up and running and in working?
No, as I stated previously, Director, it has not gone up and it's not running.
So we had 4 years to implement that, and we are still in the same spot we were in 4 years ago. So the PLIP is the Professional Liability Insurance Program. So with that, I'm happy, as I said, to change the motion to 10 million. Thanks.
Thank you. Director Ames, the same admonishment I made earlier, please be efficient.
Yes, I had a question about the RFP process, because I know that you were saying it takes several months, but I do think that we could look at certain things to go out for RFP. Sylvia, I was talking to you earlier about, testing, inspections, that typically can go out at a separate RFP, so you wouldn't have to pay overhead for these particular contracts. So the contracts we're awarding right now, they sub out for testing and inspection possibly, correct?
That's correct. And
Yeah.
we definitely could look at that in the future as far as doing separate RFPs for a specific type of work.
Yeah, and thank you for that, because I'm familiar with that kind of process where some of these things you could tease out and do separate RFPs and not pay that overhead, which I guess we saw this investigation that we paid a little over $20,000 in overhead. So that's why we were having this discussion, is trying to eliminate that overhead fee. So I think RFPs are a solution potentially. We're not going to go with RFPs on all of this work. So do you know when you can come back and give us this information that we have asked for, from 2019, the catch up of what we did, and then moving to the future? Can we get this information as a semi-annual? And if we are going to get it, when would we see this?
Yes, absolutely. Director, the plan right now is to get the updated report to you early March. That will have all the GEC information from 2019 as well as the expected expenditures for, or expected use of these new GECs through the future.
I appreciate that. And then also, this is a little bit more intense, but the projects and the scopes of work for the budget, for the 2-year budget, when would we see that kind of detail? Because the GCs is one thing, right? That's for 5 years.
Correct. So the report that we sent after the presentation before listed every single project, and I believe there were comments from the directors to add brief scopes. There was also a comment to subtotal per section, and there was a comment to add unfunded projects. So I know you didn't ask all that question, but I want to just say the report that's coming to you will have all of that. It'll be every single project. It will give you brief scopes on the projects themselves, and it will give you the expected budget that we need in the 2-year cycle.
Okay, thank you. This is a huge lift, a huge change, which is why I love having the 2-year budget. So are we going to get that potentially in March as well? Or do we know when? Before the budget is approved, correct?
The budget's typically not approved until early June, so.
Yeah, I'm
yes.
talking about looking at the list, getting the detailed list of scopes.
Yeah, if she's
and
doing it in
projects.
March, she'll have it before the budget, yes.
We're thinking March. Okay, thank you so much. I think that's a huge improvement. I appreciate it.
All right, seeing no additional speaker,
No, you've got me.
Director Rayburn, please.
Thank
if
you.
would Be brief. Thank you.
At the onset of the pandemic, BART's 2019 agreement was in place. It's very similar to what we're looking at and that we're proposing with the original motion to approve today. That agreement gave us the capacity as a board to double the tranche amount and know that we could deliver on that. I don't want to hamstring our capacity should we need that again and have to shortlist or create a short-term process for creating a new set of GEC contracts. That's wrong. Thank you.
Thank you, Director Rayburn. Madam Secretary, can we go to a vote?
Yes, and I believe we're voting on the substitute motion with the friendly amendment
Yes.
from Director.
This is a substitute motion for the $10 million and the IG check-in at 50%.
Correct. Okay. Director Rayburn,
Nay.
Director Saltzman, Director Simon, Director Allen,
Yes.
Director Ames,
Yes.
Director Dufty,
No.
Vice President Foley,
No.
Director McPartlin,
Aye.
President Lee.
No.
Thank you. Motion fails.
Thank you. Now let us go back to the original motion for a vote, please.
Director Rayburn,
Yay.
Director Saltzman, Director Simon, Director Allen,
No.
Director Ames,
No.
Director Dufty, Vice President Foley,
Aye.
Director McPartlin,
Aye.
President Lee.
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries.